Good morning, everyone. God bless you, and thank you for being here today. I would like to share some insights that I think we all can take to heart about the preparation that we, in collaboration with the Ascended Masters, have made for our individual missions in this life. A lot of that preparation occurs before we embody, and we plan out our lives, we plan out the initiations, we plan out who we will meet, collaborate with, marry, work with. And it's interesting because in the biography on Flower Newhouse, which I shared a little bit about this past week, it speaks of this dynamic before she incarnated and how, in collaboration with her sponsoring masters and the angels, etc., they planned her life. Well, we all do this. And I'd like to give you just a little bit of an understanding of my life because I think it's important in the context of what I'm doing and what we collectively are doing to know how everything happened for a purpose, how everything was set up in advance so that I would have the skill sets and everything that was essential to do what I'm doing. Now, you can do the same exercise. You can write down all of the key points of your life where you took the right road, where you studied, where you did this or that, met that person, read that book, that prepared you for your greater mission. So here's a little summary of some of the key points in my life, which can also possibly go into our next book. Obviously, being born into a large Catholic family was very important for me, and having Catholic schooling through to the 8th grade was important to develop a devotion to the Blessed Mother, Jesus, and the saints, especially giving the rosary. I was an altar boy. I remember doing the rosary often very early in the morning at the 6 a.m. Mass, and it was a holy feeling. It felt like this was part of who I was in that devotion to God. In Catholic schooling, we were admonished to develop good handwriting, and this is kind of a lost art in this day and age. Handwriting, as I look at it now, was important for me in the early delivery of the very early Heartstreams in 2004. So I, by God's grace, did develop good handwriting. I always got A's in handwriting. And I look back now at this as an action of the crystal rays through my hands. It was developing refinement. And I think this partly manifests through past lives where I had been a scribe. And of course, you have to have that wonderful, legible handwriting as a scribe so that others can read what you're writing. A lot of people now, you can hardly read their handwriting. They haven't developed that skill set, and it's something that I feel is still important, and hopefully we'll have it no longer be a lost art, it'll be a refound or rediscovered art. A proficiency in spelling. I always got A's in spelling, and for some reason my inner voice made me almost fanatical about spelling. And to this day, I'm a little fanatical about spelling and people spelling things correctly. And I don't like it if I make a mistake, in sending a text or an email where I've missed spelling a word. Why is that? Because the accuracy of the words, the master's words, is so important. And so the accuracy brings the light into play through, in this case, the English language. It could be any language. And yet the spelling is important because that, again, is refinement. It is an action of the crystal rays. And this is a crystal ray movement. And so when we develop accuracy in everything that we do, proficiency, it is the dotting of the I's, the crossing of the T's, and ensuring that what we say, what we convey, has truth within it, has perfection within it. Not that we are unbalanced in this, and occasionally I may have done that with people Yet I do believe that where I've called people out on this, it's for the reason that they can assess for themselves why it is that they are not careful or being accurate. And so, in all of my work in editing, editing is about accuracy and it's about proficiency and it's about grammar. So, it's almost like God embedded within my soul and spirit this inner knowing that I would be doing this work. And so, I had to develop my understanding of the English language. For a long time, I would study word play and word books and do crossword puzzles and things like that. Why? To develop my understanding of the English language. And so, even though I did not go to college other than a few night classes when I studied accounting 1 and 2 and supervision, I do believe that by God's grace, I've been able to try to capture the essence of the master's words through this proficiency in spelling and in English. Sports were a big part of my life for a long time, and God desired that I have a strong physical body so that I could bear planetary karma, I could do the work and bear the energy that I have to bear in my body. Now, I'd like to lose a few pounds. I think we all experience this as we age. It's a little harder to maintain that physique that we desire, and yet I do, by God's grace, have a pretty strong temple and I can do physical work. I can bear what I have to bear in my body. So it was, basketball, baseball, football, tennis, swimming, biking, a lot of biking when I was young. I had a paper route. All of those helped to develop my body and it served me well. Finding Edgar Cayce through my mother at the age of 14. This was a key, a huge stepping stone on my path. I believe the Catholic teachings, although I had questions about it when I grew up. When I found Karma and Reincarnation, about the auras and ancient civilizations, Atlantis, and the Edgar Cayce materials, it clicked, it made sense. That was it. I was hooked. I knew it was the truth. That was a major shift in my life. That was something that I know that I, in collaboration with the masters, put there as something that I had to find in order to fulfill my mission. And discovering my grandparents' health books when my grandfather passed on. And I started reading all these books on diet and health, and that was important for me to develop a sound body health-wise. Became a vegetarian at the age of 15. I studied Arnold Ehret's book on the mucusless diet and food combining. And then I worked at a health food store when I was 15, 16, 17. So maybe I was 16 and 17. That was important for me. And I don't say I'm a fanatic, but I do feel that a healthy body, eating good foods, organic foods, live foods is really important. I found the teachings of Edmond Bordeaux-Zeke on the Essenes when I was about 16, 17. That was just amazing for me. That was another keystone in my path that I had to embrace that beautiful teaching, and it served me well. I fasted when I was 17 for a week. I had a very deep mystical experience with Jesus. I felt that he became a part of me, his essence, and so that was crucial for who I am. I've shared about my experiences with the wonderful spiritual teacher. My dad and I went to Chicago and heard Catherine Coleman, and I received an impartation of the Holy Spirit, and that was key for me also. And it just so happens my very first dictation through the summit was the Mahachohan. So the Holy Spirit has been very important in my life. Every step of the way, the Holy Spirit, I believe, has led me to my mission. I found an organization before I found the summit called the Cosmic Circle of Fellowship. It was a small group in the town where I grew up. Yet there was one book that I've talked about, Relax First, which was important for me to read and embrace because I was a type A personality. I was like a doer, go get 'em person. And this book, Relax First, helped me tremendously to kind of cool my jets and to develop, that stillness through relaxation that even Yogananda in his energization exercises talks about. And if you read the SRF lessons, there's a whole section on relaxation that's very important. The Ultimate Frontier book I discovered when I was 17, and later, many light bearers in the Heart Center would move to the STEL community that was actually founded by Richard Kenninger, who was the author of that book under the code name Eklal Kushana. So the Ultimate Frontier book had a lot of truths in it. There was some error, but overall it was a book that led many to a higher path of light. We moved from the Chicago area to Carbondale, Illinois between my junior and senior year of high school. This was very important for me on my path. My mother grew up on a farm in Minnesota. She desired to get back to her roots, so to speak, and we had, I believe, about 128 acres. So I started doing organic gardening. I had two gardens. I had a vegetable garden and a kind of an herb flower garden. When I got working with the soil, something shifted in me, and I knew in my soul at that point and in my soil that somehow this was important. And then fast forward to many years into the future, we're doing permaculture. It developed in me a work ethic. I worked for some neighbors who required help when they hayed, and that was hard work. And believe me, if you've ever done it, you know what I mean. I picked apples in an orchard, which I wish had been organic. It wasn't. That was hard work. I developed a physical hard work ethic through gardening, and I've talked about that before. It was just so important for me. Finding the teachings at 18. I was a senior in high school. Robert Reese introduced me to the teachings. He had been in that other organization, the Cosmic Circle of Fellowship. That's where I met him. He introduced me to the teachings right after the Easter class of 1974. I bought from him Climb the Highest Mountain. I was reading it on the bus going to school. This was like the highest truth I had read to that point in my life, and it resonated with me. And then I went with him to the summer class, 1974 in Spokane. That was the beginning of a 30-year epic part of my life in the summit. Many initiations. The things that I did, the departments I worked in, all were preparation for what I'm doing now. I worked initially in what we called mail processing, and that was like customer service. And so I opened the mail, handled responding to the mail, input the donations, etc. The department grew. Joyce Hennis was there for many years working with me, and especially in the file room, and we registered people at conferences. I learned a lot about computer inputting. Fortunately, I have to backtrack here. In high school, I took typing. That was one of the most important classes I've ever taken, typing. You may downplay it now, but it has served me really, really well. And so I became a really effective and efficient computer inputter during those years in customer service, which they call now. And we handled everything. At one point in Livingston, Montana, we had 33 people in the department, and I was a supervisor. There were 31 ladies, one other guy, John Tossa, the mailman, and me. And I was the supervisor. I wasn't the department head. I was served under the department head, who was, Madam, uh, Marilyn Monroe, Marilyn Monroe, Marilyn Barrick. I think Elmore wanted a little laughter in there. Marilyn Barrick, who subsequently now became an ascended being. She wrote 7 books. So I worked under her. I worked under Teresa Huey, who's now Teresa McNicholas. Got a lot of initiations there. I learned so much, in all those years. Also at the services, reading the books, studying, sitting at the feet of the guru, absorbing the teachings, memorizing the prayers, and actually memorizing the Jesus Watch. That was one of my favorite rituals, the Jesus Watch with me, 1 hour program or service. And I memorized the whole thing. And so I could close my eyes when we gave that Wednesday night service without the booklet and just feel and experience the words and the depth of what we were doing spiritually for the healing of mankind. I was the Keepers of the Flame membership secretary. That was my title for many years, working under Alex Reichart at one point and sending out dues reminders for the Keepers of the Flame. And I wrote many, many letters. Then at a certain point, I edited every business type letter that came out of that department. This was a huge job. I had to edit every letter. So the editing was crucial for me to learn for what I'm doing now in the editing of the heartstrings. And again, being very careful with grammar, considering all the concepts that were in the letters, ensuring accuracy, making sure that we were helping people in the right way. And during that time, I handled all the what we call the exceptions. It's like all the things that didn't fit into the program, so to speak, they all came to me for many years. And I had to deliberate really with the Holy Spirit to decide how to handle this situation, that situation, based on a hardship case or someone who, maybe we could extend a little grace to in some way so that they could come to an event when they didn't have the money, whatever it was. All of that was important. And so that itself was developing the crystal rays, I believe. I was a member of the Cosmic Honor Guard, and that was guarding mother's children. And that was important for me to develop a certain level of discernment and that. And although it was interesting what happened during that time, and I look back at it kind of with tongue in cheek as to all that transpired, I got to know mother's children. I had some initiations directly with one in particular, and then with mother as a result. And it was just a very interesting time. Now, I was in the accounting department under James McCaffrey, and I learned accounting, and I took 2 night classes, as I mentioned earlier. This was very important for me. Fast forward to having an art business, an art gallery and business, that was essential. And later I learned QuickBooks, which was very important. It's something we use in the Heart Center. And so even though I'm not directly using it, inputting now, I understand accounting principles, and this is important for a large organization that we are building. Inventory control, I did that for a number of years under Alex Reichart in the shipping department, and I learned how to take care of the inventory. This has served us well for my understanding of it for our store now and for what we're doing to ensure that our orders go out accurately and that we have an accurate inventory. Later, after I left staff because of the downsizing of the staff, I was called back on staff as the Keepers of the Flame manager or director, served in that capacity for about 2 years. This is where I saw the inner workings of the summit in its later years, recently from 2002 to 2004. And this is what catapulted me and my soul essence to be ready for what I'm doing now, because I saw firsthand what was going on. Lanella was not happy, and it had already been determined years and years ago that the Masters would start a new movement because of the vision that a close friend had in 1985 when she first met me at the store at Camelot. And so, it is what it is now. My art business I had for 10 years. I first was a salesperson and then had a business. That was important for me. And also being on the board of St. Mark's Church for many years in every capacity, president, vice president, treasurer, and secretary. I did everything. I learned the ropes in all those areas. So all of this, and let me say one last thing, decree leading. Decree leading and counseling, I was one of the people in the summit did communicant interviews. So I'd had to interview people, and there was some counseling involved in that. So I learned how to counsel in the appropriate way, not as a professional counselor, but as a spiritual counselor. And that has served me well. And the decree leading, many of you know me, and you saw me leading decrees for many years, both at Camelot and the ranch. This was very important to develop my heart chakra, the ability to discern, the ability to send and emanate light, to feel the energy, to bear the energy in one's being. And so for years later at St. Mark's Church in Livingston, which I helped to get, I would go in the mornings for an hour and pray doing Estrellas and Divine Directors with a sword. And for years I did this and then went to my art gallery business. No one knew about it except 1 or 2 people that walked in on me when I was wielding the sword. But during that time I made calls on everything. So this is just a very short little discourse giving you some insights into how everything that I did was preparation for my work now. It was training, it was messengership training. And although other people feel like they were my trainer, God was my trainer, the Holy Spirit was my trainer, Mother Mary was my trainer, El Morya was my trainer, and Manjushri, now I know, was always there behind the scenes helping me. So God bless you. I know I've gone a little over. Have a wonderful day, and we'll talk on the other side of the rainbow. Okay, bye.